Demand barking can be one of those behaviors that really activates our own limbic system, really pushes us into fight or flight. And this can be especially true for folks who experience sensory sensitivities. But even without that aspect, it's very normal for persistent barking, especially at certain pitches for different people, to really activate us. We often refer to this type of communication as demand barking, but I invite my clients to use a different label. This behavior is communication, and when it's a behavior that can already be activating to us, calling it demand barking really tends to set us up to increasingly view the behavior as bad or problematic. It might make us angry or frustrated, and we might behave in a punishing way toward the dog. Or a lot of advice on the internet will say just ignore the behavior. And so then we're in a situation where we're ignoring our dog's attempts to communicate. They're trying harder and harder for longer, louder, at a higher intensity to get our attention. And the more we dig in and refuse to acknowledge them, the more distressed they become, and often the more persistent. And then we get frustrated more and more and more. We're also going up on the stress scale until we can't take it anymore, and then we behave in a punishing way toward our dog, who was simply trying to communicate a need. We know that in healthy, secure relationships, those involved turn towards one another's bids for attention, as opposed to dismissing or ignoring each other. And so we want to do the same thing with our dogs, and it can be helpful to reframe demand barking as support seeking or connection seeking. Dogs who are engaging in this type of behavior are trying to get a need met, whether it's that they are asking for food or to go outside or to play or for social support dealing with a stressor, or because they're incredibly frustrated or feeling very anxious, or they're feeling pain in their bodies. This may be the only way that they have to communicate that need. And so the problem isn't the communication. It's that we find the way the dog is communicating to be aversive. And that's relatively easy to address. We just need to alter the language. We need to change the way the dog is communicating what they need. But the time to do that is not when they are actively saying they have a need. Needs need to be met first, and then we can teach alternative behaviors as forms of communication. Now, in the meantime, we may not want to reinforce that barking as the way our dog communicates their need, but at the same time, we don't want to ignore them and damage the relationship and leave them in distress without a way to communicate that they need support. I often have my clients play a game called Getting a Glass of Water. So if their dog begins to engage in this method of communication that they find aversive as the human, I have them get a glass of water. It doesn't have to literally be getting a glass of water. You could stand up and look out the window or stretch, but change the scene. This generally gets the dog to stop barking for just a second, and that's really all we need. This just interrupts the connection between the barking and what we're about to do, which is to turn toward our dog, act as if, oh my gosh, I'm just seeing you there, hello, and attend to what they need, whether that's giving them social support, taking them outside, feeding them. And then when everyone is in a good learning brain, dogs and humans, and everyone's needs have been satiated, then we can work on teaching alternative ways to communicate those needs. Often we can do this just by increasing behavioral flexibility. So we teach the dog to do other behaviors, chin rests, hand touches, sits or downs. It really doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something that they can do easily and freely, and it's something that we don't find aversive. They should also not find it aversive. And a lot of times, just increasing that behavioral flexibility gives the dog more options to draw from, and they start offering those behaviors when they are trying to request something, whether, again, that's to get our attention, to go outside, whatever the case may be. And then our job is to be attuned to that and respond to that. We can also be more intentional and specific about this, so we can pair specific behaviors with the request. One common place that I use this is with my clients who scavenge for things on walks that can harm them or that are unhealthy. And in my client population, they're often doing this as a way to cope with stress. And often doing a scatter feed works just as well for helping to relieve their stress. Actually, it works better because then there's not the conflict of their human intervening and trying to wrestle the thing away from them, etc. And it lowers our stress levels because our dog isn't in physical danger. And so we teach the dog that if they want a scatter feed, they can let us know by doing a specific behavior, like booping our leg or the treat pouch. So that's an example of how we can also be more intentional about creating that language. But remember, that work needs to be done when needs are satiated and everyone's in their thinking brain.